Is the mic on?
Transformers is for frat boys. Alright, that's the end of my video. Bye! Alright, I'm gonna be real with y'all. Michael Bay's Transformers was my favorite series as a kid. And yes, I have regrets, but I still watch these movies every once in a while because it's a guilty pleasure and I like to look back at how bad my taste was in movies. I see this series the same way I see the Fast and Furious franchise. It's mind-numbing dumb fun, and I just enjoy it. I can't explain it, but I enjoy it. I just shut my brain off, take 3 shots of tequila, and just have a good time. You really have to see these movies for what they are in order to enjoy them, because the one thing I noticed about this series is that it's really douchey. When I say that, I just mean that this series wasn't entirely made for nerds. I feel like these movies were made for frat boys. Look, I know that there's a lot of people today that are nerdy, and nobody really cares as much anymore because people have kind of embraced themselves with pop culture in a way that people didn't before. It's cool to enjoy things, no one cares. There's probably a lot of frat dudes now that watch anime and comic book stuff. But you see, these movies started coming out in 2007. You were a weeb if you talked about anime and comic books. I'm sorry, that's just the way it was. I remember those years. But from what I recall, the Transformers series got a pass because it wasn't completely nerdy. And that's because these movies were directed by former frat boy Michael Bay. Now, I actually like some of Michael Bay's movies because I think he makes some really interesting choices. Visually. But you see, if you were to pitch the first Transformers series to your average Chad, this is what you would have to say. Bro, this movie's got sports cars, bitches, massive explosions, Marines, Linkin Park, and constant dick jokes.
You cannot be for real. Oh my god, you for real.
I also know that these movies work among the frat boy audience because... Okay, you see, I was out one night and I was, like 8 beers in, light drinking, being responsible. And as I was talking to people, I brought up the Michael Bay Transformers franchise, as most people do when they're drunk. So I asked this one frat guy if he liked the Transformers movies, and he said, "Megan Fox is so fine, bro." And I had an epiphany in that moment. Because I remembered, Megan Fox can't act for shit.
What are you, like an alien or something?
She is by far the worst part of those movies, if we're talking acting wise. And that's when it clicked that I was watching frat boy movies featuring robots. It's pretty clear once you break it down. Number 1, the car shots. Michael Bay loves sports cars. I think it's safe to say that most people do, but this dude is horny for that Chevy Camaro. Michael Bay apparently started his career with car commercials, and it really shows in each of these movies. Look, it makes sense that Transformers would turn into sports cars because they look cool, but there's moments where it becomes incredibly distracting. The number of car shots in this series is ridiculous. You could literally use footage from these movies and turn them into car commercials because that's literally what it looks like.
Have you ever been beaten by a wet spaghetti noodle by your girlfriend because she has a twin sister and you got confused and fucked her dad? Well, that's how it feels to drive a Ford F-250. Ford.
I think it's hilarious that they've used Bumblebee to promote every new Camaro. It's great marketing, don't get me wrong, but you feel like you're watching an advertisement in the middle of a movie. They even show his transition into whatever the newest Camaro is twice in this series. It was cool the first time, but then it became a car commercial. Number 2, lots of hoes. It's no secret that Michael Bay loves to throw sorority chicks into his movies, but it's hilarious to see them in a movie about robots from outer space. In this franchise, they either sexualize the fuck out of the love interests, or they throw in some TikTok girls as extras for random scenes.
That jerk just stepped my car?
That's 10 seconds of my life that I'll never get back. There's even this weird thing in the 4th movie where everyone's talking about how hot Mark Wahlberg's underage daughter is, and they include a scene where one of the characters explains why it's legal in the state of Texas. My question is, the fuck? Did they really have to go out of their way to explain that? And my other question is, did they film the first portion of this movie in Texas just so they could explain this whole underage daughter thing? Michael Bay, I need answers. I also find it funny that as soon as they got rid of Megan Fox, they replaced her with a Victoria's Secret model instead of like, I don't know, maybe someone with an acting resume. Don't get me wrong, I think it's cool to give a newer actress a role, but come on, bro. Then there's this lady that they put in Transformers 5 as Mark Wahlberg's love interest. Recognize her? Yeah, me neither. And every other character in this movie wants these two to fuck for some reason. Almost every female character in this franchise is inserted as a love interest or for something sexual. Just go back and watch them all, you'll see what I'm talking about. But I will never forget this scene from the second movie.
You are. I can explain everything.
So I'm guessing the studio told Michael Bay, look, we need you to focus more on the Transformers and less on sorority chicks. And Michael Bay said,
¿Por qué no los dos?
why is this man so horny? Why is this scene even a thing? I don't understand. Like, you can't have this epic fight scene and this shit in the same movie. Look, there's penis jokes throughout the entire franchise, but this was by far the horniest movie of them all. The second movie is the most frat boy movie of the entire franchise, trust me. Number 3, the jokes. Now, I'll admit some of the jokes have made me laugh hysterically. Sometimes they made me forget that I'm watching a movie about alien robots. And the jokes are definitely funnier and less of an interruption compared to the jokes in Marvel movies, but they're still unnecessary and can still be annoying. The funny part is, these are total bro jokes. Like, you know, a frat boy came up with a lot of the jokes in this series. Don't believe me? Let's take a look at the second movie, which, like I said, is the most frat boy movie of all of them. It consists of humping, racist jokes, a dude in a thong, and testicle jokes. We got just a hint of the racist jokes and sexual jokes in the first movie, but once you get to the second movie, it just goes balls deep with it, and I mean that literally. Ball sacks are mentioned like a billion times for some strange reason.
Okay, don't be sucking the sack, bro. Which sack?
The ball sack.
But what's stranger are the Decepticon testicles and the horny Decepticon that humps Megan Fox. And just saying that out loud, ugh. By the way, this is the same guy that voices SpongeBob, which I find hilarious.
I'm ready!
Say my name, say my name.
I could rant all day about Revenge of the Fallen because, like I said, it is the most frat boy movie of the franchise, but each Transformers movie that Michael Bay has directed has frat boy tropes. So many. Like in the fourth movie, nothing says frat guy like chugging a Bud Light and telling some nerd to fuck off. As I mentioned earlier, there's some jokes that have actually made me laugh. I don't know, I guess I have a dumb sense of humor, and the scenes where Shia LaBeouf screams always get a laugh out of me. Or the scene where the guy yells at his grandma.
I've fallen, and I can't get up!
Shut up, Grandma!
While I may think some of these scenes are funny, it still makes me feel like I'm watching a completely different movie all of a sudden. A lot of times, the comedic side characters feel out of place. The transition between the scenes where the Autobots are talking to the military and the scenes where some dumbass joke is made can be really distracting. There's also so many jokes about Sam's parents in the first 3 movies, and it's unbearable. Oh, and when his mom takes edibles, she starts going berserk, which doesn't seem accurate, but whatever. Let's make this movie 2 hours and 45 minutes, baby! I think comedic relief is necessary for some movies, and it makes sense for something outlandish like watching cars turn into robots, but it's also so odd that the jokes we get feel like they came out of an episode of Workaholics or Blue Mountain State. Which, I love those shows, but I don't think I really want them in the Transformers movies, just saying. Number 4, explosions and the military. This next subject may not necessarily be a frat boy thing, but these parts of the movies definitely feel like bro moments, not to mention signature Michael Bay scenes. Now, if you don't know by now, There's one thing that makes Michael Bay hornier than sports cars and supermodels. It's explosions and the US military. It's become such a meme at this point, but the funny part is, I kinda like all the explosions. Maybe that's because I only have like 3 brain cells, so maybe I enjoy explosion scenes. But I will say that there's moments where the explosions are really drawn out and feel distracting. Like, you know Michael Bay was beating his dick when they got those shots. No doubt. As for the military scenes, I think it's cool to give the US military some badass scenes, and it also makes sense that they would be called to action if there was an alien invasion. But they get so much focus in this series that it often feels like there's 2 separate narratives going on throughout most of the franchise. That's why the 4th movie is one of my favorites, because it just focuses on a central group of characters for the most part. I wouldn't mind so many military scenes if they weren't so in your face and they actually had our main characters in them. They often start to feel like recruitment videos. I feel that they could have made these guys our main characters. Yeah, I guess their personalities aren't as fun and plucky as the civilian main characters, but it makes more sense for them to be involved than some normal ass people. Number 5, the music. Now, my favorite frat boy thing about this entire franchise is the soundtracks. There's some songs in these movies that don't belong whatsoever, but damn are they good. It's funny because I think Revenge of the Fallen is one of the worst movies in the franchise because of how much frat boy shit is in there. But it has the best soundtrack of the entire series. Like, I had to buy that soundtrack on vinyl. Every song is amazing to me, and it's great to have an album with Optimus Prime and Megan Fox on the cover. Makes no sense when you look through my collection, but who cares? I know that everyone that saw these movies as a kid can admit that they got so hyped at the end whenever Optimus Prime would make a speech and Linkin Park would start playing.
We are here. We are waiting.
I never would have thought those 2 things would work so well together, but damn, they really do. It makes no sense because these movies are flawed in so many ways, but the music selection is not bad at all. It is weird sometimes though, because you'll go from like a song by the Fray and then go straight to Nickelback, and it's just the weirdest transition, but I love it. Number 6, Chads everywhere. Now, I've mentioned many things so far that make these movies frat boy movies, but maybe I haven't convinced you just yet. But the thing that shows that Michael Bay made a frat boy franchise is the frat boys. These movies are loaded with frat boys. I don't just mean actual frat boys, but there's a lot of characters that act kinda douchey. Let's look at Mark Wahlberg's character. Wait, wrong series. Cade Yeager. He's an inventor? Oh, and he's also jacked, he plays football, and he knows how to chug a beer. There's many characters in these movies that talk about sports and chicks and all sorts of bro stuff. Now, when it comes to the actual frat boys, they're mostly in the first 2 movies. I'll never understand this whole college portion of the second movie. Maybe it was so Michael Bay could live out the good old days, and if that's the case, couldn't he have saved that for a different movie? If you look at his movie Pain and Gain, it's a total bro movie, and it works because that's what it was meant to be. It wasn't based off of a beloved 80s cartoon. I don't know how a frat party and sorority girls got lost in the mix of a movie about Autobots and Decepticons, but I guess that's just a Michael Bay thing. And I'll also never understand why these movies get so horny and weird, but somehow I still love this series. I hate saying that, but I do. And I always rewatch them every couple years because I've learned to accept the series for what it is. Each movie is incredibly stupid, but the fight scenes are surprisingly good, and I always find myself having a fun time. Somehow. I really think you have to be intoxicated to watch these movies. That might be part of it. Of course, I think these movies would have been way better if they weren't directed by Michael Bay, but he also made these movies his own and gave us some of the best action scenes that I wish I could have got in the Bumblebee movie, so I gotta give credit where it's due. Let me know your thoughts about this franchise in the comments down below. Be sure to like and subscribe. all that typical YouTube stuff. I'm gonna go listen to the Transformers soundtrack while I shotgun a Bud Light and watch football with the boys. So, yeah. Bye.